Hey everybody, it's me. I just wanted to hop on here really quickly to introduce today's video. Ashley Diamond Siegert is a powerhouse in Bryan College Station photography. She owns Figment Photography and a new brand that she recently launched called Vacanva. I'm so excited for you guys to watch this interview to learn a little bit more about her and about how she got to where she's going and where she's going to go from here. It was really inspiring to talk with her and to see how she's kind of giving back to the local area. So, click play and enjoy. Hey, everybody. I am here with Ashley Diamond Siegert, and she is the owner, entrepreneur, CEO, all of the things of Figment Photography, plus I think some other things. So I'm just going to hand it over to Ashley, and I'm going to let her kind of talk about who she is, what she does, and what all she has her hands in. So take it away.
Oh, gracious. Yes, it's a bit of I like to call it an empire, but we'll see how that
We need more female. We need more people more females that run empires. So
run empires. I agree. Yeah. So my background, it's funny. My background is I have my degree from Clemson in elementary education with a focus on deaf ed. So I was going to be a sign language interpreter, all this stuff. Um, and then I went in, I was born into a TV family. So my parents were both in sports and news television. And my dad was the Atlanta Braves producer my whole life growing up and for TBS. And then he also
that's
did.
pretty cool childhood, I would think.
Yeah, it was a little crazy. It was not normal. So he also did like NBA and NHL and Goodwill games and Olympics and all that kind of stuff. So I grew up like in sports facilities and on the road with them and like all that kind of thing. And my mom also, like, eventually they were like, one of us has to stay home and raise these children. And so then my mom had a home business where she did like corporate gift baskets and baby baskets and like it was a whole thing. So I joke like the soundtrack of my childhood is an air compressor because she had like a foil imprinter that would like imprint like cocktail napkins and ribbons and like all this kind of stuff. So I grew up with like a home-based entrepreneurial business in our home, but also very much in like the TV world. So when I got out of college, I immediately actually started working in television because I knew the people and I was available and I knew the world. And to this day, I'm technically still an ESPN employee.
Oh, that's cool.
I've been on Major League Baseball for this would have been my 9th year had we not had a COVID situation and all that stuff. So my background was kind of all over the place, but then as you do, I met a boy and we moved to Texas and I like had a teaching degree. So I was like, do I substitute? Like, what do I do? And I actually found a magazine out of Brenham on Craigslist and started selling ads for them. And they were like, hey, we need pictures of our clients to go on the blog. And I was like, well, if I'm going to get published right off the bat, I should probably know what I'm doing. And I took a class in shooting and manual and then we were off to the races. And since then, Figment has been my studio here in Bryan College Station since 2012. And then since then, we've had a couple of brand offshoots. Megan Garner and I used to have the Senior Project, which was our high school senior brand, which kind of got, when she had to move away, just kind of got absorbed into Figment. And then I have a commercial brand, A Diamond Productions, that does images for businesses and websites and, all those commercial side of things, product work and all that jazz. And then about 2.5 years ago, I went to the beach and we were looking for a family photographer to shoot our family at the beach. And it was a whole process because when you travel, you don't know who to hire and you don't know what that situation is going to look like, and you don't know what
you don't have a sphere of people to pull from because you don't know anybody there. So
there's no referral process. And I actually ended up with a referral that somebody here who had been to the Destin area had used somebody. I liked her stuff. We did it, and she was set up with multiple photographers running the beach on any given day during their peak season. So I think she had 5 photographers running at that point. And so we were with actually, I think her newest hire at the time. And it was a great process, but I
My
saw a
cat is
lot.
going to join us for a second.
Oh,
Sorry.
totally fine.
Apologize.
This is the Zoom world we are all living in, my
Okay.
friend.
She just wants attention. So sorry.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Oh, I get it. I'm with her. um, so yeah, there were a lot of holes in the process, and then I realized like we are a tourist destination and we have people traveling in here all the time, and is there a way that we can partner with all the places that people love here in town, and scale photography a little bit, where we can have multiple photographers running at any given time, and then really be partnered with like the best locations and curate those best locations, and really pitch it as like you don't have to have a referral to a specific person when you travel. And so Vacanva was born out of that. And of course we were ready to launch when tourism died a hard death. And our hotel occupancy in Bryan College Station was under 10%. And we were like, well, maybe we just wait it out a little bit.
Yeah.
So we officially launched, I guess, via Facebook post in September, and we are working. We have 20 locations here in Bryan College Station that we offer as like our backdrops, and we're partnered with those locations. And then at the moment we're 2 photographers, and then we centralized, like we have one person just doing all of our editing, and one person doing all of our client management, and one person doing all of our marketing work. And so we really kind of expanded the team to include all of those. And at the moment they're doing a lot of work for Figment, my existing portrait company, but also ramping up for the tourism stuff. And then now I just hired somebody to start the infrastructure in the DFW market, so we can start scaling.
That's really cool. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense to go ahead and start figuring out how to run the process and how to work the process, because if you don't have the systems in place, then the scale won't work. Exactly. That's really interesting. I feel like sometimes here in town, especially living here, and we don't have a lot, I don't regularly have a lot of contact with the students. Last year I did a lot of leasing. But sometimes you forget that there is this constant turnover of people here all the time. And we see that in real estate with people buying second homes, resort and second home properties, or condos where they come to stay. So it's interesting that you were able to see, while running your business, you're able to see the gap in the market and kind of capitalize on that. And it makes a lot of sense, because, you do go places, and you typically, when you go on vacation, you are maybe a little more dressed up, or you may, you're in a different environment and you want to capture that. So I think that's a really cool way to solve that problem, and also employ other people in the process, which is always good.
And you're not fighting like scheduling issues like soccer games and when can dad get off work, and our client for that really is, at the end of the day, it's grandma. And when you're going on an extended family trip with multiple generations, there's a lot of hurdles that you have to get through to get that big family portrait up on grandma's wall, because you have to get everybody there, you have to get everybody on the same page wardrobe wise, you have to get everybody in a decent mood, you have to then figure out the ordering process, and do we order all together as a family, or can we order separately, and how do we do all that? And so we've really spent our time, especially through COVID, getting the process down where none of those hurdles are going to be things that they're going to have to deal with. Sure. We're going to handle, like, we do the Zoom consultation, so grandma knows exactly, very transparently, what we're getting into from the very beginning. We're actually able to, the ordering software that we use, they can send me a picture of their wall with their furniture and their like paint colors, digitally mock up what it's going to look like on their wall. And like, that's game changing. And we do it all via Zoom, because they don't live here and they don't need to be coming back and forth for multiple meetings. And we really handhold them through the whole process. And really, like, ultimately at the end of the day, grandma wants like the big family photo, and then like individuals of each grandkid are flanking it, like all of that. And we can do that and make sure it's like archival pieces that are going to last 4 generations, and they we'll replace them if anything happens to them, and like full guarantee, and like the whole process, soup to nuts, and really taking care of them.
Well, and like, not everyone is a Joanna Gaines, and not everybody can visualize what it's going to look like. And so y'all are able to really just
show them,
solve the problem for them 100%. Like, what do you want? You want that? I can do that. Or you don't know what you want. Here are some options. That's really That's really cool.
Yeah.
I dig that a lot. So has this always kind of, I mean, I know you said that you had just kind of started it recently, like thinking about it, but has something like that always sort of been on your radar or?
I always wanted to build something. I mean, I was the entrepreneurial kid. Like when I was 12, my grandparents had, you know, those candied nuts that you get at like festivals, like cinnamon roasted almonds and pecans. So my grandparents had one of those companies, and they had like this flea market that they went to every weekend, and they were set up. And like when I say flea market, I'm talking like it was like like huge, massive, like 20,000 people a day, like kind of place. Yeah. And they had like this massive, like facade storefront down the middle. And like, so when I was like 12, my weekends, I would go spend the night at their house and then like have my little kit and then set up a face painting stand, like outside that area. And like, that was my 12-year-old weekends. Like I was always that kid. And so I always felt like I was meant to like build something and build something big. And it wasn't until, basically when I moved here, I was like, all right, well, what do I have at my disposal? Okay, like I got a camera, like let's figure this out. And so I started the Figment brand, and when that kind of got to the point where it's like I can only do so much as one person. I can only be there to click the shutter so much. I can only you know, do so much hours of editing. I can only do so much hours of sales. I can like I'm only one person. And then when I started to like, I actually started working with Steve Tinkle, who is in the We Group and is a small business consultant here. And so he and I started working together, I guess almost like 4 years ago. That's been a long time. We started kicking around ideas on like how photography hasn't been a scalable thing since like Life Touch, and then like Shutterfly bought Life Touch, and like who is actually looking at how do we scale photography in the market? And photography has gotten so much bigger and yet so much smaller because we don't have all these brick and mortar studios who are doing what we grew up seeing as like this old school brick and mortar studio that you go to.
The nice little triangle of
yes. And like ugly sweater cat, you know, like the whole
and little faded picture in the background.
Yes. And at this point, if you want to be a photographer, like you're forced to go out on your own and run a business. And not everybody is equipped or wants to do that. Not everybody wants to deal with sales and marketing and taxes and like all those pieces. And so like, but the scaling and the marketing is like, that's my geek zone. That's where I like to really like, that's where my brain goes. When I'm in the shower, like those are like ideas.
Those are the things that keep me up at night. How can I do this? How can I reach these people? How can I, so I totally, I vibe with that 100%.
So, you know, I'm at the point now where it's like, okay, like what are your strengths and what do you want to do? And can we find a place for that in what we do? And so like my editor, she actually has a master's from the Viz Lab here, but like the way life worked out, she wasn't working and she was stay-at-home momming, and she was like, do you need editing help? And I was like, be careful what you wish for. And so
I'll give you all of it.
Oh my gosh. And she like came on during like peak fall portrait season last year, and she was like, oh, this is drinking from a fire hose. And like right. Once you start outsourcing, you realize like how much you were actually doing by yourself, and you're like, holy bananas. So she keeps real busy just doing all the editing. And then we had to create a back-end system where like all of my people are remote, all of my employees pretty much are stay-at-home moms. And so how do we have a system where like we know where the files are, we know where the client is in the process at any given time, we're able to talk to each other about it without having to get on the phone and create a meeting and like all that stuff. And so and none of the photography like client management systems do what we would need them to do. So we actually kind of like built our own out of Trello, and it's like whole like it's bonkers.
And you look at it now and you're like, how did we do that? Like
totally. And it's connected to our website where it auto creates cards, and it's like, it's funky. My husband laughs. I'm like, I feel like sometimes I'm looking at like a surgical board, you know, to like make sure everybody's like where they're supposed to be and what's happening, and nobody's falling through the cracks. And it's a lot of
so how big, my first question is, when did you have to make your first hire? I don't know if you've already mentioned that.
I brought Carla on. Carla's our marketing and production coordinator, because I felt like first and foremost, I just needed to get a lot of basically anytime I find myself repeating something over and over that can be taught, I go, okay, now it's time to give that to somebody. So I could teach somebody how to order product. I could teach somebody how to set up the Facebook ads. I could teach somebody how to get all of the like numbers and data pulled and everything like that. And so my first hire, Carla, was a godsend. And she, as it turned out, grew up here, went to A&M, went to a consult. And so she knows a lot of people in the area. So when we started our fundraiser program, she like dove in hard. She had been like the PTA president and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And she can make things so pretty. And so she was kind of a referral through another friend. And we sat down at Starbucks and was like 3 hours later, we were like, okay, I think this is going to work. And then just started like slowly handing stuff off to her. And then after that, I think the next one was my editor, because I just needed to get, I had done some editing outsourcing before, but the girl was in Canada and it was just like, it
wasn't the right fit. That makes sense.
Yeah. And like, should I need extra help tomorrow, I would probably like still send her stuff. And there's other, you know, companies that you can outsource to, but Catherine's in my brain, and she like, I sat her down and I showed her my whole workflow and then like handed her a folder and she like nailed it. And I was like, and we're done. So,
awesome.
And she also pushes me. She's like, let's try this, let's try that. And she's like, how do you feel about it? And I'm either like, we don't do sparkles, or I'm like, this, that, or whatever. But she gets, you know, how my brain works. And so, and then Kristen, my associate photographer, walked in as a client and was asking, and you know Kristen, she's actually also a realtor with you. So she walked in as a client and she was asking a lot of funky questions about like how I do things, and like not client questions. It was like back end questions. And I was like, what are you getting at? And she was like, I think I want to do this. And I was like, well, I need help. So I will train you. She had never like dug into anything, exposure, lens changing, like anything before. So we really was starting from scratch, which was good because it meant I could lay out, like, as we scale and start hiring people, what are the things I'm going to have to teach in what order and how is it going to need to go to be most efficient. And so then Megan, my former studio partner, she is in my head from years ago and knows everything that I think and finishes my sentences, and is really good about building curriculums. So she's actually in Houston building all of our training materials so that as we start growing faster, those will be ready to like be a video program that somebody can dig in. And then we're only having to do the finalizing.
You're like, you are just blowing me away. Just like over here, like, what? Because I think that's the hard part, right?
Yeah.
The hard part, it's easy for us to be in it every day and to do it every day and to wear all the hats. But the hard part is taking that information out and figuring out how to make it, we keep using scalable, but how to systemize it, you know, and how to make sure that people understand and that the process is the same. We struggle with that. You know, there's a lot of stuff for us as real estate agents where we're like, well, I have to do all of it because my clients come to me for me. But if you're able to take that information out of your brain and get it to someone else, like you said earlier, you keep saying they're in my head, they're in my head. And that's really, you're the way that you've systemized things and the way that you're going about making sure you're doing it correctly right up front. It's easier to train somebody. It takes a lot more work up front, but it's easier to do it if you have taken the time to pull all that out. And I mean, it's just, I don't know. I'm sitting here like my brain's just going.
Well, and we had to figure out.
Started Figment, how long after you started Figment did you have to make these hires in order to like continue scaling? Was it 2 years? 3 years?
No, I started Figment in 2012. So my first hire was a year ago. So,
wow. So you've like scaled real fast.
Yeah. And from like, yeah, I was doing it by myself for a really, really long time. And I needed to, I think, for the iterations of like, make all the mistakes, figure out what niche we really want to be in, because I've shot everything. I really made my name in this town as a birth photographer, which thank goodness I had kind of shied away from that in the last 2 years in order to build this, because we're not allowed in the hospitals now. Like that would have been a hot mess. I had one on the books that I had to convert into basically a 1-year baby program, but I hadn't been pushing it in a while because we were building this, and then it all unfolded that was really a good call at the time, hindsight. But I had to shoot weddings for 4 years to realize that I don't want to be a wedding photographer. I had to shoot, you know, a good amount of product work to realize like, that's not really the market we live in. And I'm going to have to go be competing with Houston, Austin, Dallas photographers if I want a lot of commercial work. And like, I had to go through all those iterations of like what we are. And I still do all those things and those brands still exist. And if a client comes along, like we had a client come along last football season and they were like, we make really fancy portable toilets and we need fancy pictures of really fancy portable toilets. And like, okay, like I will come shoot your toilets, like whatever you need, I will make it. And we will make it a quality experience, you know, like whatever it is, we'll light it and we'll make it work. But at the end of the day, like our brand message kept coming back to people need connection. And like, we keep going through this over and over and over again. We're going through it with COVID. Like we have to be connected with our people, our humans. And there's a zillion studies about like, if you put pictures up in your home, that it's good for your kids' self-esteem and they feel like they belong and they have all this self-worth. And then with grandparents, like they have this intrinsic, missing of their people all the time. Like they're like, my people have grown up and gone and they're not in my home, but I want, this is a way I can have them staring at me and smiling and in my home all the time. And yes,
but it could be cool, it could be creepy. I mean, you know, it's fine.
100% creepy. But at the end of the day, like we just kept coming back to families. And also realizing that like from a consistency point of view, where you're going to have the most consistency that people annually want family portraits. And so, you know, how do we mix all that together? So it all just kind of like the pieces started to fall and the pieces started to fall and the locations were totally on board. And now the locations need the traffic. So we provide another reason that people are coming to their properties and we take really good care of them. We make sure they have a higher than normal site fee and they have use of the images if the client has signed a model release with their marketing. And like, we're really kind of bringing everybody all along for the ride. And
well, I'm definitely going to get a list of your locations so we can include those in the information.
I have a page just for that.
Great. Okay, wonderful. That's so, I just think it's so cool because it's giving back, but you're not giving, you're including, I think it's really easy because of how close we are to Dallas, Houston, it's very easy to lose that local thing that we have here, but we have a great local market. Like one of the best things that I saw, and this is kind of a segue, but when COVID first hit, Christine Kosminski, I think.
Oh, BC Meals and Deals.
Meals and Deals. And I just saw the whole community just rally around all these businesses and all these restaurants. And it kind of just clicked in my head that like, we have everything we need here. Yeah. And so it's just really cool because people are struggling. Yeah. And if there's a way that we can help each other out, and instead of going this way, if we can just reach out and go this way and we can help each other, I don't know, gives me goosebumps. It's weird.
Well, and we've really taken a stance on our marketing as partnership marketing. So we've done a good amount of Facebook ads. We still run a decent amount of Facebook ads and whatnot, but we really believe in partner marketing. And so that built our fundraiser program. We really realized like our client, where's our client hanging out? She's hanging out on the donor list of every nonprofit in town. And so if we can really work with the nonprofits and create a system where they're going to make a lot of money and then we're going to have access to their donor list as our client list, like that's scalable to the nth degree. So we started our digital fundraiser program last year, and between Voices for Children, Children's Museum, the American Heart Association, and Tiny Hope Village, in about a year, we sold, I believe, 110 sessions for fundraiser program, plus whatever like silent auctions we were in. That's one of Carla's things, is like get us into every silent auction in town, and that not only meant we raised like $15,000 for local organizations, it meant we had 110 already paid clients in our system. So when lockdown happened, it was bluebonnet season and they had already bought their session, and we were out on a private 200-acre ranch with bluebonnets. And so we didn't have to shut down completely. We were able to do something safe that people felt safe doing during that time. And that fundraiser program and like partner marketing with nonprofits is really what gave us that opportunity to be able to continue going at that pace. And
I also think that it probably helped those families have something to look forward to. Because I know that for a while there, everybody was really, it was hard
Yeah.
emotionally and stuff. And so I think that's really, really cool. Tell me a little bit more about the your fundraising stuff. Like
Yep.
I'm kind of picking up kind of what you're talking about, but kind of go into that a little bit more for me if you don't mind.
So basically what we do with each organization is we build out a web page that is specific to their organization or event that we're doing with them. And they are able to either, we will pre-write like a 4 email sequence for them to send out over a 2-week period, or if it's in conjunction with an event they're doing, we have ways that like at American Heart Association at Hartball, we actually had like a QR code card that we put at each place setting. So
Oh,
people
wow.
could click and then purchase it right on their phone. And the way it works for all organizations is it's a $75 donation to the organization. And with that from us, they get a session fee and a 16x20 mounted print. And
Wow.
it brings them into our system and they do get something tangible. And it's like a $482 value they're getting for that $75 donation.
Yeah.
The full 75 goes to the organization. We even eat the credit card processing fee,
Yeah.
and we give them the full 75, and we're able to do like a whole big check presentation and the whole
Yeah.
thing. And then those clients have a year to use their session with us, so they can pick what season of the year they want to use it, if they want it in bluebonnets, if they want it fall pictures, whatever. And then they come through our full system as like any other full family client or senior client or baby client or whatever they want to use it for.
And then they end up, you know, like they end up potentially, you know, from a business standpoint, most of the time are going to be ordering additional prints and things like that. That's the ROI on that has got to be.
It's been great. And we're very transparent. Like you can come in and do your shoot and walk away with your 116x20. Like it is not a bait and switch, but like my job is to make something so fabulous in this opportunity that you want to purchase more and you love them so much that you can't walk away from them. And so,
well, and we tried to do pictures this weekend with my kids, and I got a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old and a 13-year-old. And I mean, it was like, if we're already there and we're already doing the thing, like, yes, let's take full advantage of it. So as a mom, like I totally get that, but it's such a great way of kind of like a soft entry kind of. It's not so much of a hard sell. And I think, side note, I think it's hard for women to talk about money. So I always like to talk about money and ROI and advertising and things like that. But I think that you're right by helping other people make money.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing something good for the community, but also as a result, you're running your business and you are making a financial sacrifice and you're getting a return on your investment. So I think that that's what we have to do in order to, like you said earlier when we were chatting, is just find a way to not live in the box. You've got to think outside the box. And I think that's fantastic. So I'm very impressed. So thank you for sharing a little more about that. I was like, wait, I feel like we need to go further into this.
Well, and we would love to talk with, if anybody's involved in any organization, we've actually figured out a way to be able to do it with like travel sports teams that have like when the kids have to sell a certain amount of stuff to like contribute to the travel expenses or whatever. We've done it with a couple of sports teams where we can actually track which kid that came through, and so we can then like pay it out to that particular family for their expenses and whatnot. So
that's crazy. So where do you you see your business in like a year? Do you see it continuing what you're doing right now, or do you feel like, do you have big plans other than Vacanva, or what's kind of on the radar?
So I really feel like everything that we expand from here on out is going to be a trampoline from the Vacanva situation. And so we're, like I said, one of my hires is we have hired somebody in the Dallas market to start setting up the partnership infrastructure with all of the locations up there. And so then, and we're hiring photographers in that market. So if you know anybody,
keep my eyes open.
You never know. And then also Megan, our education director, she just purchased a home in Galveston. So I think we're going to start expanding into there. And then we kind of see how that runs in a space that I don't exist in physically, and then how that needs to happen. And then once that model is really down, we can start expanding anywhere. And so Sydney, who's our destination curator, she has tons of experience in the tourism industry. And so I feel very comfortable that once she has saturated the Dallas market, I can put her on a plane to any city and we can set up that infrastructure anywhere. So, and we also have a concierge arm that basically like let us know where you're vacationing and we'll send a photographer there. And that's like a whole,
that's
thing.
really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. You're going skiing in Vail, like take us with you. We'll do it. The scale speed is really just kind of dependent on how fast we want to grow into other markets at that point and how we get our training systems down where everybody's having a really consistent and fabulous experience, because we really are selling it as more of not just a photo shoot, but it's a family experience that you're having on vacation. And so our photographers are really like trained in how do we make sure everybody's having a good time, even dad that doesn't want to be there, surly teenager, cranky toddler, like people are hungry, whatever. Like, how do we overcome all of that so that everybody walks away going, that was actually pretty fun. Like, and that's kind of our like,
the running joke is always like, how many threats did this photo take, you know? And so I think that's a really good, you know, good way to look at it, is trying to make it fun, not just something that goes on a wall and they're like, that was not a fun experience because everybody was angry.
You want to look back at it, and that really stems from the photographer and how they're directing it. So we're not even calling our people photographers, we're calling them connection directors.
Oh, cool.
Because, everybody's got a funky title, like, you know, Disney style, we're cast members or whatever.
I love it. I love it.
So our connection directors are in charge of making sure that this experience is that it's going to be a fun experience that everybody feels like they connected over. And so that is a very curated system of like, if somebody starts to melt down and you start to see moms starting to threaten them or like have to be like, if you don't smile, like the minute you say to your kid, if you don't smile, then like it's over. That kid is not going to give you a genuine smile. Like it's done. And so we have to like reset and like be like, okay, what's your favorite food? Let's play Simon Says, you know, like you have to recreate the experience so that everybody's having a good time and you get a genuine smile out of them. And because at the end of the day for us, like we can't sell a cranky image, like we can't put that on your wall. You don't want that on your wall. So that's a big part of it. And then we have some stuff in the works with some big partnerships where we might be able to leverage some really big mailing lists that we're working on. So that's the best I can tease it right now.
That's totally fine. Maybe we'll
like keep your eyes out soon for some big announcements on all of that fun. So
now that we've talked kind of about scaling and where you plan to be, is there anything that you like, any big nuggets of wisdom that you wish you could go back and tell Ashley from 2012 or even 2013, or anything that you feel like you've learned that you would want to tell someone starting out in something like this? Because you're at a very different place than a lot of photographers end up. So, I mean, that's a really big question. But if somebody is looking to kind of get started or somebody looking to scale what they already have, like what kind of nuggets do you have for them?
So my biggest thing, first and foremost, because I teach also, like I have a whole education arm for like the photographer world. And so we've hit on this a lot. And one of the things that I have had to tell myself a zillion times, just like as women, we deal with overwhelm and anxiety and all of the things that come with and like, especially like, gosh, if you're parenting in the middle of all this on top of trying to run a business and trying to maintain your sanity, it can get a little crazy. And so, self-care is not an option. It's a necessity. And there have been days where I have to identify, like, my mind is starting to go into a place that I'm going to make choices that are not healthy for me or my business. And so I need to step back and like shut down for a little while. And that's fine, and I am a self-proclaimed workaholic. Like if you text me at 11 o'clock about your photo session, I'm going to respond. Like it's, it is that, but you also have to, like, when you start to feel that overwhelm and that anxiety creep in, just like shut it down and go watch Netflix and, get a glass of wine and put the candles on and the bubble bath and like the whole thing, and just don't. And, regular meditation and exercise and legitimate food that came from a legitimate food source and like real things.
Totino's pizza doesn't count.
Oh, definitely. And making those healthy choices, but also I understand that I am not a normal photographer, like out in the world. And at the end of the day, like it didn't really have to be photography. Like there was going to be an idea that I was going to build into something. That was who I identified as, more that like I'm the entrepreneur first and the artist second. And like I always had an art bug. Like I had an art room in our basement when I was little. Like I was always constantly, like every birthday gift was some kind of craft kit or something. So there was always that like part of it, but I was entrepreneur first and artist second. And so like really identifying like what is driving you, what is driving your soul, and like leaning into that. And then if you don't have a solid reason of why you're doing it, you're not going to be able to sustain. And so I've had to do a lot of like soul searching about like what is it that we want for our family, what is it that we want for our life and for our future, and like is what I am doing and building I aligning with that and coming together with that. And we decided 3.5 years ago that my husband was a school band director for 13 years, and we decided 3.5 years ago, like if I'm going to build this into what I see, like I can't be the default parent. I can't be the one that's doing the pickup and drop off and the doctor's appointments and like all the things that the default parent, does. And we decided that my husband was going to come home as a stay-at-home dad. And so we had to build it then where the photography studio income was going to sustain our family if he quit his teaching job and shift the books basically within our household. And so in that moment I was like, okay, like boom, let's drive this thing, like let's make it happen. And so I gave myself 2 years and we did it in 6 months.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think it's hard. I applaud you for that. I think it's hard to in our society make that choice and allow for that change to be the one that you choose. But I applaud you for that, because it's a hard choice to make and say, I mean, it's not that you're not involved with your you have
Oh
one,
yeah.
you have one,
I
two,
won.
one.
Yeah, I won. Yeah.
I don't know. I struggle with that too sometimes, where you're saying, well, like I want to be in both places, and I think that's really awesome that you were able to scale in a way that allowed you guys to make a change that worked for your family in the best way possible. And girl power a little bit maybe.
Well, and I'm lucky, like I also realized that like not everybody is in a partnership where that would be the right call. I happen to have married somebody who is incredibly well equipped to be a home parent. That's awesome. He's probably more equipped than I ever was. And so like, it's what's best for our son. It's what's best for our family. But I also understand like, that's not the case for everybody. And so for most people, for most photographers, most mother photographers, like this is a sideline thing. This is something they're doing on the side to contribute a little bit to their family, to give themselves an artistic outlet, to give themselves something that they feel their own ownership over, and get that like out of the house, feeding their soul type of thing. And so that's a very different mindset than where my business is at the moment. But all of those are legitimate, and no one is more important than the other.
I agree. I think that's what's so cool about being your own boss. And my cat just apparently wants to be involved today. It's finding what in your world you can give of yourself and get in return, obviously, but also what works and what the correct dynamic is for you as a person.
Right.
Because, especially in real estate too, you see people that are out there doing $40 million sales, which is great.
Yeah.
At this point in my life, and I always tell people this, like at this point in my life, I don't want to be that agent. That agent works all the time, which is great. Like if that's the thing that they want. And I think that's at the end of the day, your motivation has to align with your desires, your goals, and your family situation. And so you're right. There's no right or wrong answer. And you have to figure out what works for you as a person, not only your family, but individually, because, those of us who suffer from anxiety and little bits of depression and things like that have to be sure that we're taking, like you said, taking good care of ourselves. Right. Because for someone with anxiety, $40 million in sales a year that's not a good goal. because that would make me miserable. So I just
Right.
I think it's really good that you and your family were able to recognize where you wanted to be
Mhm.
and made a plan that
Right.
fit for your life. And so I think that's really hard for us too, to sometimes acknowledge that it's okay to set a goal and stay, you
Right.
know, and
And
then
I don't want photographers out there to look at me and what I've built and what I've done and feel like they're failing. Like
yeah,
that's never the goal.
right.
But I also like I want them to on some level see like there are possibilities outside of working myself to the bone and making nothing because I'm
And
underpriced and I'm undervalued and
that's the key.
yeah.
That's the key. The key is finding the balance. And
Yeah.
I don't believe work life balance exists at all. I don't.
No. No.
But I think that finding where you're content
Mhm.
and figuring out how we as a family make that happen. And for some people that's making tons of money. For some people that's time. For
Right.
some people that's quality interactions with other people. And I just it's a hard thing to do, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with that. And thank you for talking about that, because
Yeah.
some people wouldn't be willing to talk about that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
No, I'm an open book. Bring it on.
So I want to just, before we kind of wrap it up, is there anything else that we haven't really covered that you feel like you want to tell people about either Figment or Vacanva, or just anything you want to talk about?
Mercy.
Open floor for you for just a minute.
I know all the things, girl. You get me on pretty much any topic and I can go for an hour.
Well, you got about 10 minutes.
Mercy. Honestly, I think like the majority of your audience, I think that sees this are women who are looking at what is going on out in the business world right now. What's going how can I fit myself into something that I can contribute to my family a little bit? And so as we build, we're really hoping to be a place where you can you don't have to run the whole show, but you can contribute something on the side and then not have to be stressed about doing all the things. And it's not like, as much as we glorify entrepreneurship, and it's huge and it's big and it's great and it's what's running, the success of the country and Shark Tank and like all that kind of thing. Like I need people who don't want that. I need people who want to leave their house for 2 hours, go shoot a family, like get out of their house for a little bit, get out of their crazy for a little bit, go shoot a family, and then come back, upload it, and like go put their kids to bed and like move on with their lives and enjoy, just kind of that break and not feel like they have to run the whole show. And like I think it's also not talked about enough that like you don't have to feel the pressure to like go out and build an empire. Like sometimes those empires that are being built don't work unless you have really amazing people who are interested in like joining forces
Yeah.
and being a part of it. And I think as being part of a firm that like there is a place where you can do your thing and thrive and achieve without having to be like the buck stops here boss. And so I'm looking for those people.
So if you're listening,
Join my team.
all of our contact information will be here. Well, actually, this has been wonderful, and I really, really appreciate you taking the time out of your obviously busy schedule to chat with me about your business and what you got going on.
Because I hire people.
Guys, everything is going to be posted, and all of her contacts is going to be posted here. If there's anything that you want to know, hit her up, ask her questions. If you're looking for a little bit of a side hustle, looks like she's got some opportunities for you. But Ashley, thank you so much and have a wonderful day.
No, thanks. You too.